But joining us right now here on the Rich Eisen Show is my colleague from the NFL Media Group, a future first ballot Pro Football Hall of Famer after 11 seasons with the Cleveland Browns, and now fresh off of an inspiring performance on the Titan games on NBC, hosted by Dwayne Johnson, Mondays at 8 Eastern on NBC. All right, buddy, Joe Thomas. How are you, Joseph?
I'm doing fantastic. Nice to talk with you today.
Right back at you, Joe. You know, we were just talking. I was just reminiscing, and I actually dropped a rare S-bomb for me on this program. That's kind of, I guess, the mood that I'm in this morning. About all the crazy stuff that happened in the first quarter of that game in Week 16. It feels like 19 years ago, based on everything that's happened between then and now. But that Saturday game we called between the Bucs and the Texans, and how amazing it was that we were in that, pre-game meeting. Jameis had just come off back-to-back, almost 500-yard games in a row, right? Like 450. And he was bouncing off the walls and talking about how all of his receivers were people that you didn't know anymore. You didn't know because both Evans and Godwin were hurt. So, and now Winston's a saint, man. I mean, it's amazing how quickly things happen like that, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's almost a little bit of a reflection on kind of where we are as a country right now. After 4 months ago, you never would have expected to be where we are, and then kind of like in that game, now Tom Brady's a Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Right. Jameis Winston with the Saints. You go into that game not knowing what it's going to be, and we just kept looking at each other in the booth, going, "Is this really happening?" It was that pinch me moment, and granted, it was my first time ever calling a game, but I kept thinking to myself, this can't be how all these games go, right? Like, they're not always this insane.
They were insane. Like, that first quarter was insane. And it's crazy that Winston's last pass as a Buck was a pick six that ended the game. If you remember against Atlanta, that overtime pick six that he threw. And Brady's last was a pick six in a playoff game. And now they've kind of swapped. So how do you think Brady and everybody else is going to do in Tampa? Because it sure looks like this season's going to go, Joe.
Yeah, I got to think that Brady's going to have a tremendous season. I mean, that's where all signs are pointing. Like we talked about, they've got tremendous weapons on offense, something that Brady probably hasn't had since they had that great season where they only had the one loss in the Super Bowl. And he's reunited with Gronk, and the only thing that could hold back an offense like that is if you had maybe some question marks about the coaching staff or the scheme, but they don't have that with Bruce Arians. I mean, you're talking about one of the great coaches in the NFL, one of the great offensive minds, and a defense that's really underrated. When you look at their defense, the thing that hurt them from a statistical standpoint was their scoring defense. Well, it was because their quarterback was turning the ball over at a monumental pace. And so I think we all can expect Brady's not going to be fumbling and throwing picks at the rate that Jameis was. And so that's just by that nature going to help that defense and their statistical ranking, and they can get after the quarterback. They got a good defense. So I think there is nothing that's going to be holding the Buccaneers back this year.
It's interesting too, Joe, and we had Bruce Arians in that pregame meeting as well the day before. And other than him you could see he was a little bit chipper too, saying don't shake hands with Jameis. Nobody shake hands with him because his throwing thumb was broken, and he was kind of having fun with it. But then we asked him, is Jameis going to stick around here? And he goes, I think so, and said we need to see how these next two games go. And we find out subsequently that him and the rest of the Bucs were already looking over the steering wheel at who might be free, and apparently they were already thinking about Tom Brady at that very time.
Wouldn't you love to see that 30 for 30 right now and just see, what was going on with the back alley communications and the wink nods and kind of kicking the tires on stuff? Because you have to think that they were planning for potentially not re-signing Jameis, obviously, because they didn't re-sign him. And, it's just so many things that I'm sure will come out 10, 15 years from now, just as far as the speculation and the chatter and the conversations that the front office had about who they think they can get. And realistically, that first time, I would have loved to have been a fly in the room when the first time when they thought and they talked openly about, hey, we really think we can get Tom Brady to be a Tampa Bay Buccaneer, and the excitement and the enthusiasm that had to be just bouncing off the wall in that meeting room when they look at their roster and they say, this is the one guy that we get, and now we are firmly a team that can win a Super Bowl.
Right now, Gronk's in the mix there with O.J. Howard. You want to talk about a 2 tight end set? I mean, that is particularly dynamic. And then, when they draft, they did have an opportunity to say, to heck with it. Let's go get another one of these top-notch wide receivers, stick him out there with Godwin and with Evans and with everybody else, and let's roll. But instead, they traded up one spot to get Tristan Wirfs, and they're going to kind of move him around the line. What do you think of that, and how you think he will fit there, Joe Thomas?
Well, I think that's a really good move. Obviously, they're good at looking themselves in the mirror and realizing, yes, Tom Brady is still a great quarterback, but Tom Brady is not Lamar Jackson, and we need to do what we can to keep him upright. I think they realize that the one weakness that Brady's going to have right now, especially at this point in his career, is he's just not super mobile like some of these guys in the NFL. And so if they want to make sure that they can be the prolific offense that they know they can be, they got to protect him. And Tristan Wirfs is a tremendous talent. I got to watch a lot of film of him, and I got to see him at the Combine. The guy can play. I mean, he would have been the first tackle off the board in nearly every other draft. It just so happened this was the deepest tackle draft we've seen in a long time. And so picking a guy like that, especially when you have a position like offensive tackle that was a position of need for the Buccaneers, we'll be honest, they struggled a little bit at offensive tackle. And so to be able to trade up one spot and get their guy to be able to protect their other guy, Brady, back there, I think that was the right move.
And what about the transition to move positions, Joe? What do you make of that?
I've talked a lot about it, and I'll use 2 guys as an example. Mitchell Schwartz, Lane Johnson. Those are guys that switch sides from college to the pros, and they had no problem. And I think the transition gets a little bit overhyped from college to the pros because you just don't have a lot of reps coming out of college. I mean, yeah, you practice, yeah, you play games, but the number of reps they're going to get when they do start practice and they do start playing games in the NFL is so voluminous that they're going to be able to easily override any coding that they had in their brain that said, I'm a left tackle or a right tackle. Where I get nervous is when I look at, like, the Giants, and they're potentially going to be moving Nate Solder over to right tackle. I get nervous when they move guys later on in the season, in their career, because you do have a lot of muscle memory that gets built up, and that transition takes longer to kind of change your mind and change the way you kind of see your muscle memory. That becomes more difficult. That's the transition that I get more concerned with. College to pros, to me, that's no big deal. A few months, and it's going to be like he was never on the other side.
I'll tell you what, Solder was can you call him a bust of a free agent, Joe? Is that too strong a word?
I get nervous calling my fellow former brethren, NFL brothers, bust, because that is a very strong label. But when you are the highest paid offensive lineman in NFL history at the time, I think the Giants had maybe hoped for some better production. Let's put it that.
Yeah, I mean, you break the bank like that, right? And then you have such a high draft choice again, and you take somebody for his position, essentially, right?
Yeah, you're reading the tea leaves, if we'll even call it that correctly.
Well, I'm trying to be,
you're being very diplomatic.
I'm trying to be, since I'm trying to match your diplomacy.
Yes.
Joseph.
Yes, you're doing a great job. Yeah, I would say that you pay a guy, and now granted, it's somewhat a little different in free agency because when you have a position of need and there's a good player available, a lot of times you have to reset the market in an environment where the salary cap keeps climbing, and so that's part of the reason he became the highest paid player in NFL history as an offensive lineman, not because the Giants thought he was the greatest player in NFL history as an offensive lineman. However, I do think that they probably expected some better production, clearly, or they wouldn't have drafted a player at his position this season.
Joe Thomas here on the Rich Eisen Show. Before we turn to the Titan games, let's talk about the team that's closest to your professional home in Cleveland. Where do you stand on the maturation and the preparedness, the readiness to lead a team of Baker Mayfield? Where do you stand on that subject, Joe? There seems to be a lot of conversation if he's ready or not. The new coach, the old coach wasn't as good for him as we hoped. And, where do you stand on this subject?
So I stand firmly in Madison, Wisconsin, thinking about Baker Mayfield, and I'm one of the people that was disappointed in how he played last year, probably just like he was. He played so well as a rookie, took that step back last year, but I have a lot of confidence and faith that he's been saying and doing the right things this offseason. I think he really understands. He looked himself in the mirror after the season and was very honest about his performance and why the performance was that way. And I think you couple that honesty, that self-awareness with a guy like Kevin Stefanski, who's the new coach, offensive coordinator, who they brought in there, who's a very serious, very detailed offensive mind head coach. And a lot of times as players, you tend to take on the personality of your coach. And I think Baker's not going to lose that gunslinger mentality because that's what makes him great. And you're able to couple that and kind of harness it a little bit. It reminds me a little bit of Brett Favre with the Mike Holmgren era, right? You know, Mike Holmgren, now he's different than Kevin Stefanski, but he brought that level of detail and that commitment to the craft, that seriousness that Brett needed, right? It was the yin and the yang, and I see that with Kevin Stefanski because Baker does remind me a lot of Brett Favre and his mentality about I think I can make every throw, but also I think you need a coach that can help you understand, yes, you can make every throw, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't have proper technique or give yourself the best chance of success on every throw. You shouldn't just be thrown off your back foot in the triple coverage. Let's take and make calculated risks.
So what did go wrong there last year, Joe? What did happen?
Well, I think it's like anything in the NFL. You can't just point to one thing and then that be the problem. But clearly the coach-player relationship didn't work out because I think, you know, Baker has that gunslinger mentality, that he can, you know, get it done no matter what, which is great. But I think you do need a coach that's willing to harness you. And it didn't seem like he got that. And it didn't seem like the offense was putting him in the best chance for success. I think what Baker does really well is he throws the ball on the move. He's very, very good at scrambling and making plays outside the pocket, not in a unscripted sense, but running the bootlegs, running the play actions. And that's just the type of offense that they're bringing in there right now with Kevin Stefanski. They're running the wide zone, the Shanahan scheme where you're going to be running wide zone. They've got two great running backs. They're going to be very good at running the football, but then that's where the play action pass, the bootlegs, are so dangerous because you get those huge wide open holes in the secondary because defenses have to sell out to stop the run game. And Baker makes plays as well as anybody outside the pocket throwing the football. And I just think it's a really good fit, and he seems really motivated and dedicated. And I think he understands that, look, you have one good year and then one bad year. Your third year is really important in the NFL when you're on a rookie contract. And this, you know, maybe saying a make or break season is too hard, but I think that's the way that the team is looking at it. They're like, hey, this is the year that's going to really solidify our opinion of Baker, and if we want him to be the guy that is the face of the franchise for 15 years, or if we need to start thinking about maybe he's not the long-term answer.
Joe Thomas here on the Rich Eisen Show. So are you tight with The Rock now? You and The Rock are BFFs?
He's in my Circle 5, right? He's in my, that I get free texting nights and weekends with now.
You could say that. We're not owned by AT&T anymore, so you can do that. That's not a problem. So you, I mean, look at you on the set of the Titan games, man. Look at you right there. Did you have fun?
It was awesome. Yeah, it really was cool. I mean, for me, I love being retired and spending time at home and being able to, you know, rub elbows with great guys like Rich Eisen on the sidelines of games and, you know, up in the booth. But getting back out there, I didn't realize how much I missed that competitive environment and just going out there and kind of pushing yourself to the limit. And it might not be that fun to work so hard that you get blurry vision and you feel like you're going to pass out. But I tell you, the feeling when it's over is pretty good, and I definitely missed that adrenaline rush. And then on top of it all, just being able to meet The Rock and spend some time with him and talk with him and the other competitors, that was really special. You know, my life's pretty simple these days, and so having big moments like that was really cool. And I finally we watched the show with my kids.
Yeah.
And it was really cool because it was the first time I'd ever seen them get excited about something I did.
That's great, man.
For my football career, I had a helmet on, and and they were a little bit younger, and
Oh.
there was no concept of, hey, that's Daddy on the field, or that's Daddy and it's cool that he plays football. But all of a sudden, I'm hanging out with Maui from Moana. Like, I'm the coolest dad on earth for at least 10 minutes until they started yelling at me again.
You're welcome is what he would say. You're welcome.
Absolutely.
Right? That is great. So your kids have never said, wow, Dad, I'm so glad you were able to keep Spurgeon Wynn upright so you can convert that first down. You never had that moment for your kids?
It's part of our bedtime stories, but it just hasn't latched. They haven't latched onto it yet.
Never had that moment, huh? Well, I'm glad that at least the Titans game provided you with that. Did you talk to Dwayne Johnson about his football prowess? Because we've had Warren Sapp talking about it on this show.
We talked a little bit, and he's very self-deprecating about his football career. I wasn't old enough to play with him or see him play, but he did not make it in the NFL, and I think he was a lot better in the WWE from what I heard.
It has all worked out for Dwayne Johnson. There's no doubt about it. And then, we were seeing your I guess this is the headshot, if you will, the promotional photograph of you for the Titans games. How long did it take for you to get this look down? What were you going for here? Was this a blue steel situation, or what are you going for right here with this look? Your arms are crossed. Obviously you got those biceps and the everything's working out right there. Ed Hockley would be jealous of this right here, Joe. But what's the look you're going for right here?
I'm working on a second career as a male model.
Clearly.
And so I was trying to put that out there as part of my portfolio photo potentially for the future. So if you wouldn't mind, just keep sharing that with all your friends in the modeling business.
Be my pleasure, because you're definitely staring at the camera. I'm a little bit frightened, but I do know you personally, so I'm able to go on with my day. How much weight have you lost from your playing days, Joe? Though, how many?
So I'm down about 50 pounds from my last season, and about 70 from my heaviest. I played at about 300 to 315, and then sort of the middle of my career, when I was still feeling pretty good, the knees weren't too banged up. I played all the way up to almost 320, and I felt pretty good. But as my career aged a little bit, I just couldn't carry as much weight because it just hurt my joints and my back so much, and so it was better for me to be a little bit lighter. But yeah, I'm down like 50 pounds, and I feel a lot better.
What do you seriously think of when you see an old picture of yourself? When you see that,
my wife and I, we always laugh. Like it was the Fat Joe era.
Fat Joe era.
Fat Joe. Like a rapper, but not as cool.
Fat Joe era. Come on, man. But you must think about just all the days I guess it took to keep that weight on. I imagine, right?
Oh yeah. I mean, I think about it sometimes when I sit down at the table and I eat like a salad, and I'm like, man, this is the time where I wish I was still Fat Joe and I was getting paid to be fat and I could eat ice cream and cookies and lasagna at every meal.
Oh, my God.
I felt like I was doing something good, right? Hey, you did a good job.
You're doing it for work. You're doing it for work. That you can actually eat ice cream and lasagna and say, I'm doing this for work,
Yeah. I wish I had the perspective at that time to appreciate it. Maybe go back to those days would be nice sometime.
Oh, no. You look great, man. Last one for you. I know when you were drafted, we at NFL Network on our draft show, when we're live on the air, there was no Zoom. I mean, we kind of, I guess, Skyped with you or something. You were fishing. You're fishing with your dad, right? Isn't that what you were doing on your draft day? Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I know you're a fisherman. I don't know if it's the same type of fishing, but what'd you think of the 442-pound marlin that Michael Jordan reeled in? Did you hear about this?
I did not, but I'm definitely going to check that out. I've always had this dream since I was a kid. I got a book when I was like 10 about black marlin in Australia and like the granders, 1,000-pound marlins. And I always had that dream of going out there and catching one. So for Michael Jordan to catch a 400-pounder, that'd be awesome. I got to check that out.
I am apparently talking it down. It was 442.3 pounds. I don't want to forget the 0.3.
Yeah.
But he was on the boat, but he was part of the crew.
Okay.
But everybody's giving him credit. He wasn't the angler nor the captain.
It's his boat.
It's his boat. It was Catch 23.
Yeah.
And where's Catch 72 docked right now?
It's at some little puddle in Wisconsin somewhere, catching bluegills that don't even weigh a pound. But I tell you what, I'm having a good time. But maybe Michael will send me an invite someday, because that sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah, the Big Rock Blue Marlin Tournament in North Carolina is where that took place.
Yeah, the rumor is that Marlin talked tons of trash.
Is that what it was?
Yeah, that's
what he said. He was not. He was going to take it personally.
Right, Mike took it personally.
The old school man in the sea.
Yeah.
Right. Joe, thanks very much. Appreciate it, brother. You take care of yourself. And I'm glad you had fun on the Titan games. And that firefighter from Chicago was quite something. Matt Chan, who you took on in that regional finals. That was a close competition right there, man.
Yeah, everybody in my family was sad when I lost the other night, except for my son, who has become a huge Matt Chan fan. And so I think I might be getting him a Matt Chan fat head, or maybe one of those cameos for his birthday, because he loves Matt Chan. So
that's so cool,
I lost
Joe.
to a good guy, so I can't feel too sad about that.
Joe, I'm so psyched that you had such a good time with your family over something like that, to watch Dad do something. That's cool, dude. You take care of yourself. We'll chat soon. Okay, Joe?
Thanks, Rich. Appreciate it.
You're the man. That's Joe Thomas, at Joe Thomas 73. Hey, you watched all the way to the end. Thanks for that. Watch more right here.